I may have not have done a lot, but I've taken as little as I've been given, and I like to think I made something out of it. I started wrestling at the CTC, the Chaotic Training Center. Brian Fury was the big one for me. He saw something in me that other people didn't. When I was young, I was, like I said, I was very introverted and shy, and he did everything he can to try and get me out of my shell, and I'll always remember that. The Young Stallions, that idea was brought to us by the Oldies. They thought we'd make a great tag team. They suggested the Young Stallions as a name. Crap. I think it was supposed to be just like short term, a few months. It went over so well that it ended up being a few years. Getting a little more serious. Eventually, I joined as the on-street reporter, Terry Thistle. Mike Quackenbush had an opportunity for me, spokesperson for the BDK. I was Milo Schnitzler. I stuck around wrestling. I became more confident in myself, especially with the people around me. It's so crazy to see how far chaotic wrestling has come, and so special, Cole Fury to do it with Julian and Scotty. You know, honestly, I didn't know at the time.
Ladies and gentlemen, hosted by Coach C, Chris Sanders, this is Best for Business.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Another episode of Best for Business. I'm pumped for this one. Pat Mathews, man, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Chris. It is an honor. Honestly, when you invited me, I didn't think I deserved to be on your podcast or anybody's podcast because I didn't think I really did enough in wrestling. So it's an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, I say it all the time. When I debuted for Chaotic, like, yeah, it was cool to perform for Chaotic, but to commentate a show with you, to see guys like Chase and Brian, like, that was the coolest part, man. So thank you for everything.
Oh, well, thank you. That means a lot to me.
So I'm curious for you, pro wrestling originally, what was it about wrestling that ignited that made you want to get involved with it?
I mean, I think it's a similar story for everybody. You know, it's just a childhood fandom, and I just love the drama and everything that went into it. You know, when I watched wrestling as a kid, I was more of a fan of the backstage stuff than I was the in-ring stuff. So when I started wrestling at the CTC, the Chaotic Training Center, I was like, what are they doing? Like, what is a bump? What are they like? Honestly, I had no idea where to even start. So it took me a while to get it. But yeah, for me, it was the backstage stuff I loved.
Nice. So how do you take the steps to join the CTC? And how do you find out about it?
So I was 15 years old, and you know, I just got to high school. I was a freshman, and I didn't make the basketball team, I think it was. And I was just looking for something to do outside of the school because I did private school when I was younger.
Yeah, me too.
And then I went to public school. I went from Catholic school to public school. So I didn't have a ton of friends. And, you know, just research online. I found the CTC's website, and they had a one-day training camp.
Nice.
And, you know, that's kind of the story for a lot of people that go to the school. And I did the training camp. Mark Shurman was also at that same training camp. And yeah, I did the camp, signed up, and, you know, went full speed ahead.
Do you remember anything about the camp?
Yeah, I do remember everything about the camp. I remember when I first got in the ring, like how bouncy it was. I wasn't expecting it to be so bouncy, and I was like, there's a carpet on this thing? I always thought it was just like the action figure ring, so it was just flat, and, you know, but yeah, I do remember. I remember I was wearing a Bruin shirt. So Todd, who was Handsome Johnny, now Ivar, he'd call me the Bruin, and that's how I did my promo at the end of class. I was the Bruin.
Wow.
So yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. So then, when you started the CTC, I'm curious for all the trainers there at the time, what are some of the biggest lessons that they taught you?
Honestly, a lot of it for me was just coming out of my shell. The trainers at the time, I just mentioned Handsome Johnny was one of them. Then there was Brian Malonis. He did Tuesdays. And then Brian Fury was the big one for me. And I know you probably hear that name a lot around here. He's the one that kind of gave me my most chances, or he saw something in me that other people didn't. If it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have gone very far past a year or two. But yeah, the lessons I learned, you know, just coming out of my shell and being able to just be myself, I guess. I still am very introverted. You probably would never guess that by listening to me on commentary. But if you ask anybody in the back or anybody, you know, that's been around for a while, I am a very quiet person. When the lights aren't on, I keep quiet. I only speak when spoken to. Maybe not so much like the nights of shows. Right before I go out, I like to get a little lamp. So maybe that's a little different. I get a little talkative right before I go out. But I'm just, I'm a very quiet person. But, when those lights come on, whether it's in the ring wrestling when I was active or doing commentary, I'm just a different person. And I feel
Wow.
it's very free, a free feeling. Yeah.
Wow. So you don't start off pro wrestling as the Bruin. So I'm curious, when you first started pro wrestling, what is like the inspiration behind Pat Mathews? What were you going for?
Honestly, I didn't know at the time. I was just kind of, I was doing shows as Dudley DL Dawson, which is a rib.
Okay.
That came up from Brian Malonis. I was on my way to an EWA show, and they were running out in Springfield at the time under Doc Heresy, who was a great guy. And Brian gave them the heads up that my name would be Dudley DL Dawson. That Dudley Dawson is a character from some movie, some like 90s kids movie. And then DL stands for Donkey Lips, which is another 90s show. Salute Your Shorts. It was basically the fat kid at the camp. And so that was my nickname after the Bruin. When I signed up for the school, Todd gave me the nickname Donkey Lips, and that stuck for a while. And that's where that name came from.
Wow.
And
So is your first match with EWA or no?
so it's kind of blurry for me. I think my first match was with Chaotic, but it was it was kind of a rib as well. It was set up to be a match amongst students in Lawrence. It was myself teaming with another student at the time, Alec the Alien, and we were going up against Nick Fahrenheit, who was also refereeing as Daniel Warner at the time. So he was wearing a mask, and then he teamed up with the Western Dragon, Wesley Thomas, who's still very involved behind the scenes. And so from what I understand, what was supposed to happen, we had been told to put a whole match together, and we spent forever making this match. No one helped us. We're green as can be. This is literally, we're not even a year in. And we put the match together, and what I'm told is that right when we locked up, the music was supposed to hit. We didn't know this, but the music was supposed to hit, and Gino Martino and Louis Demon Ortiz was supposed to come out and squash us, which they did eventually do. But it's come to my understanding that while we were out there, Louis Ortiz actually fought for us to get our stuff in, which is awesome. That just shows you how nice he was. Him and Gino are also a couple great guys in wrestling. But yeah, what was your question? What was my first match? Yeah, it was Chaotic. I think it was that one right there. And then eventually I got the opportunity to go drive down with Mike Crockett to EWA like once every couple months, and that was awesome too. Mike's a great guy as well.
Yeah, I just interviewed Mike, so I'm curious for you when you look at your career, when we talk about it. NWA On Fire, I love asking people about it. How did your opportunity come to be?
So NWA On Fire at the time, they were running up in Maine, way up in Maine. I haven't even heard of the cities that they were running in, like Mexico, Maine. It's like 4 hours away from here. But at the time, it was just a great opportunity for us younger wrestlers and students just to get ring work. And the Savoldis were running it, Tommy and Mario Savoldi. And Fury reached out to me along with Scotty Slade and Nick Fahrenheit and invited us to go up with him and Julian. And I think also there was DC Dillinger. And we would do shows there every month or every other month or so. And that was kind of cool because not only it was my first like road trip, but we actually did like double shots too. And the Savoldis would pay for our hotels too. And imagine being like a 16-year-old kid and you're getting your hotels paid to go wrestle up in Mexico, Maine. You're traveling with these guys like Brian Fury and DC Dillinger, who was such a nice guy. God bless him. There's a guy that he looks like he has such a hard exterior, but once you get to know him, he was just a softie on the inside.
Nice.
When I was young, I was, like I said, I was very introverted and shy, and he did everything he can to try and get me out of my shell, and I'll always remember that.
Yeah. When we talk NWA On Fire, I asked Scotty Slade. I absolutely love it. What was your original, how the idea came to be the Young Stallions?
So the Young Stallions, that idea was brought to us by the Savoldis. I think they were just looking for some tag teams at the time. And me and Scotty, we were traveling together, obviously, coming up with Fury. And Scotty, he's a little older than me, but he looks young. And obviously, I was young. I was 16 at the time. So they thought we'd make a great tag team. They suggested the Young Stallions as a name, but said, you guys can work on it. And if you come up with something better, let us know. And I actually I tried to work with Scotty to come up with a better name, but I don't think we just found it.
I was gonna say, was there any contenders?
There was. Well, I mean, I had a few ones that I enjoyed, but
Okay.
I don't think Scotty thought I was taking it as seriously as he was. There was there was a lot of gimmicky wrestlers. It was kind of very Memphis-ish kind of
Yeah.
up there in NWA On Fire, and there was a wrestler that was his name was Chef Baker, and he was literally just a chef and a baker in a whisk. So I said, Scotty, why don't we just team up with Chef Baker? We can be the Muffin Men, and he did not like that. Scotty did not like that one. But me and Scotty had a lot of fun together.
Nice.
I love Scotty. A lot of memories, and through there and chaotic too.
Yeah. Is there an NWA On Fire match that stands out for you?
I guess the one that would stand out for me is actually, stepped away for like a few months. I forget what it was. I think I just had school or something. And anyway, I came back. It was like my first NWA On Fire show in a while, and they put me in the main event with Fury for the title, which it was not a squash match, but it was definitely not like your most competitive 25, 30-minute main event. But that was pretty cool,
Nice.
being in the main event. I think I was probably 17 by then. It's just an honor to be in the main event with someone that like your trainer who you look up to like that.
No, I'm curious for you. What was it like balancing school and pro wrestling? Obviously, starting 15, 16. Like, did your parents even have to sign a waiver to begin with?
Oh yeah, of course they did. They were driving me there every time. My poor parents would wait out front for me. We'd actually, when we started, there were supposed to be Saturday classes, but apparently they had like canceled them for a few weeks, and we didn't know it. They would just take me up there and sit for hours. So I mean, I thank them any chance I can for all that stuff. I mean, and anybody out there, if your parents take you to class, still definitely thank them, because they're when you're older, you realize how much time they're cutting out of their day to do things like that for you. But
Yeah.
they definitely had to sign a waiver.
Yeah. What was it like balancing school with wrestling at the time? Did you have priorities in school or like clubs or anything you were doing? Or was wrestling the priority?
Wrestling was the priority for me.
Love
I think, I did some like extracurricular just to look good in my college resume with best buddies and stuff like that. But
Nice.
as far as sports go, and like any other like theater, I didn't do any of that. I did wrestling. That was it. And I traveled on weekends.
Nice. I'm curious for your perspective. What were like those days that you were in Chaotic at first? Like, I always hear about the old school Chaotic wrestling days. At the time, were many like outsiders coming in Chaotic, or was it still just like that group?
It was very closed off, chaotic.
Okay.
To the point where, as students, when you're going into that environment, it's very it's like, I don't want to say they bullied you, but they kind of did. They really, because the people that were on the shows are protecting their spot. You got to think about the time for independent wrestling in 2009. They're the only other, there was TNA, but there was WWE. That was the only spot you can go to. And for about 10 years to that point, WWE wasn't really creating new stars. So they've been just recycling these stars and all these independent greats that we had, such as like Fury and Malonis and all of them. They didn't get their fair shake. So when they see someone new like me or some 15-year-old kid coming into Chaotic, walking around thinking that they can just walk into the locker room, they're very protective of that. And they gave you a hard time, and you had to kind of fight through it. You hear the story about, when Hulk Hogan started and he got his leg broken. I wouldn't say it was like that, but I mean, a lot of mental toughness you had to put up with. But Chaotic is night and day different now. From the people backstage and how they treat you. I mean, they were great people. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that at all. But just the environment and how welcoming it is now, it's just a completely different company. And then, of course, the production side of things is a complete 180, and that's awesome. I love the team we have now.
Is there like one big difference you notice in the locker room from when you first started to now at Chaotic?
I mean, that probably is it. Just how welcoming it is.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, there's not as much ribbon going on in the back, which was huge back in the day. I remember one time I was at a show. I mean, this isn't Chaotic necessarily. This is kind of everywhere. But I had my jean belt loops when I had a match. I came back from a match. My belt loops to my jeans. Someone took like a loose lock off a locker and locked my belt loops together. So it's just like the little things like that people got a kick out of, and you had to put up with. But you don't see that much nowadays, which is awesome. I love that. I love not seeing the ribbon as much.
I'm curious for you. What is your first interaction with Chase Del Monte?
So Chase, I first met him at the CTC. He would come in on Tuesdays, which were Malona's classes, like probably once or twice a month with the Logan brothers. And they would come in and they would just show us a few things, give us some pointers and stuff like that. And yeah, that's how I first met him.
Nice. How does the idea go for you joining what was it, Chase Reinforcements and Protection?
Yes, CRAP, CRAP.
Yeah, that's right.
So Tarzan Taylor, Matt Spectro, approached me at the time saying there's a spot or two opening on the roster. Chase just turned heel. Chase had been a babyface in Chaotic for years. He was like their champion, the longest champion ever. And after however many years, he decided to turn heel by turning on the Logans. And then with this new character, he was kind of like, it was kind of like 96, 97 Chris Jericho when he was wrestling Goldberg. He had those two dummy security guards.
Yeah,
that was the idea. That me and Alec the Alien, who I mentioned earlier, we would be his security guards. And it was supposed to be, I think it was supposed to be just like short term, a few months, but it went over so well that it ended up being a few years.
Yeah. Was it one match or so? Wasn't there like 12 craps at one point? Or was that for one match or so?
That was the Cold Fury after crap was initiated. So at that night, they just gave everybody the crap uniform, and that I think it was against the Logans. And
it was.
We filtered through, and they just took us all out one by one. Wow. So that was fun.
And then don't you get involved when Chase is doing this Chester Fernicle or whatever it is?
Yeah. So after a couple years of crap, we eventually went from wearing Daisy Dukes and wife beaters with little tassels tied on that Casey Ray used to spend like an hour before I'd go out working on my shirt. And we went from that to wearing tuxedo t-shirts, all black, to black like knee level shorts, and I think they call them magnums, the boots.
Yeah.
And so we were getting a little more serious at that point. And meanwhile, while we were getting more serious, Chase would start doing these little interviews on YouTube on the side as Chester Fernicola, which at the time me and Cam weren't involved in yet. But he would do these interviews with wrestlers like Alexis, where he'd take her face and just use his own lips. So it was just like her face, and he would, oh my God, it was hilarious. Yeah. And then he did one where he'd interview himself as Chester interviewing Chase Del Monte. And then I think eventually I joined as the on-street reporter, Terry Thistle.
Yeah.
And that's how that started. We kind of just merged crap into this alter ego.
Wow. Did you have any insight on Terry Thistle, the name, or was that all Chase or somebody else?
No, so Terry Thistle was all me.
Nice.
Terry Thistle, I was talking with Shurman at the time. God bless Shurman. I love Shurman.
I love him. Man. He's coming on soon.
Oh, I can't wait to hear that one, man. He's the most charisma out of anybody you ever know. The funny story is just like, because I'm so introverted and such a quiet kid, when I started hanging out with Shurman, he pulled me out of my show. He's one probably that got me to be as talkative as I am right now in wrestling. But he would take me to the gym. He'd force me to go and try to work on myself because that's my biggest flaw. I wouldn't work on my body as much as I definitely should have. But he's so funny. He would go into a Dunkin' Donuts, and this is before the Mark Shurman character was a thing. He didn't even know how to wrestle. He'd go in, say it behind the counter, he'd be like, "I'm here, everybody. Where's my coffee?" Like he'd act like he was this wrestling character. It was amazing. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
So yeah, Shurman's. Wait, what was the question? I'm sorry.
How does Terry Thistle come to be?
Yeah, I was hanging out with Shurman. Sorry, look at this tangent.
Oh, that's great. I love Shurman stories.
So I was hanging out with Shurman, and he said, "Well, the best way to come up with a wrestling name is to use your middle name in the street you grew up on. My middle name is Thomas, and I didn't want to use Tommy, and I grew up on Thistle Road, so I didn't want to be Tommy Thistle, so I changed it to Terry Thistle."
Wow. So wait, is that how Mark Shurman is formed? I'm confused.
No, that's his name.
Okay.
That's the real deal.
Yeah.
That's the real McCoy right there.
I'm curious. This part blew my mind when I was doing research. How do you go to Chikara?
Chikara, that I was blessed with that opportunity from Scott Guerin, who I had originally met way back when I was doing EWA as Dudley DL Dawson.
Now, is Scott King involved with EWA at the time? Or no?
Yeah, I think he was. Yeah, he was.
Okay.
He was.
Nice.
But Scott Guerin, I remember meeting him And I remember the first time I met him, they were talking about like, wow, you're pretty athletic for like your size. Because I was a chubby kid, and I was like, yeah, I bet I could do a leapfrog over you from like the second step. This is and he was like, let's do it. And I attempted to do this. This is like backstage at EWA, and this is the first time I met Scott. I literally went to leapfrog him, and I kneed him right in the eyes. He was wearing glasses, a poor guy, and that's my first interaction with Scott, and it's it's been a great friendship ever since.
Nice.
But yeah, Scott got me involved there and said that Mike Quackenbush had an opportunity for me to be this German. I don't know if it was a leader per se, but just spokesperson for the BDK.
Insane.
The Bruderschaft de Kreuzes, I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, Brotherhood of the Cross. Insane.
Exactly. Which back in the day, in its heyday, was like Claudio Castagnoli, Aries.
Lindsay was in it for a while. I remember
Lindsay
Sarah Del Rey.
Dorado. Yep, Jacob Hammermere. And then, so at the time, Chikara had like quietly phased off, and they were only running Chikara shows, not under the Chikara name. It was like wrestling is fun, wrestling is art, but it was all run by Mike Quackenbush.
Yeah.
And the idea was to bring all these heel stables from Chikara's history back together to try and keep Chikara from coming back from the dead, or along those lines.
Yeah.
And, the BDK was a huge group in Chikara's history, but with the main members, I think it was Chris Hero and Claudio Castagnoli, not there. They pulled in some extra people to fill in the void, and I was lucky enough to be chosen. Unfortunately, it didn't go as long as I would have wanted it to go.
Yeah.
I had gotten injured, and I had some personal stuff go on in my life that I had to step away, unfortunately. But I'll never forget the opportunity of being able to say I traveled across the country, going to places like Chicago and Detroit and all over to wrestle for a company that was as cool as Chikara.
Yeah, that faction was stacked. I remember, I think it was TJ Marconi. They had him in that mask for a while, too.
He was Noken. Yeah, I would travel up with TJ Marconi and Jaka for a lot of the shows. And, yeah, a couple great guys there. I was Milo Schnitzler. That was my character. I shaved my head bald.
That's right. Did you have any insight on the name or the character, or was that all Quack?
That was all Quack. Absolutely all Quack. In fact, my first time doing that character was at a show in Pennsylvania. I had rode down with Biff Busick and Sean Burke, and it was a blizzard. I was driving in my Mazda 3, and they were petrified at my driving because this is not a snow car, and I'm driving in Philly. And I get there, and they have to delay the show, and they wanted my character at the time to be the director of, I think it was Wrestling is Cool. And I would go out. He wanted me. This is just on the spot. I had just learned this information about the character. Other than I knew I was going to be German, and I had to get a white suit. They told me to go out there with a German accent and let the crowd know that the show will start an hour late. And I went out there with the worst German accent ever, saying, "Hello, everybody! The show will be an hour late." And I could just hear people murmuring in the background, "That guy's accent's awful." And then I had a spot at the end of that show where I would, I forget exactly what it was, where I think I basically announced that there would be more to come. I was hinting at the return of the BDK, and I went out and grabbed the mic, and the microphone broke. So my first promo was screaming in a German accent, hinting at a return of a group.
Wow.
But yeah, it was a great opportunity.
Yeah. Were you part of the flood too?
Yeah, the BDK was part of that flood. Okay. So like I said, the flood was just a bunch of these heel stables that came together to try and keep Chikara from rising from the ashes.
Yeah. So I'm curious, when you look at your career, obviously we're going to talk about the confidence for commentary, but for you pro wrestling, when did you decide you were having your last match in wrestling?
So it was around this time I mentioned I left Chikara after getting injured. I couldn't fulfill the dates that I had.
Are you still doing Chaotic during this time or no?
Yep, I'm still doing Chaotic. Not Chaotic was they didn't run as often as they do now. They probably only ran like once a month, maybe once every other month sometimes. But I was still doing Chaotic, and at the time I had sprained my ankle badly, and I was out for probably 5 months. And I mentioned I was going through some personal stuff, but when I came back, I don't think I actually really shared this with anybody, but I came back. I did a class match. And I don't think it was a full match. I think it was just Fury had me and Christian Casanova call a shine, a heat, and a comeback.
Uh-huh.
And on the comeback, one of my moves at the end of the comeback, you know what a comeback is, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So at the
Are
end of the
you the
comeback,
baby?
in this scenario,
Yeah.
I'm the baby.
Okay.
My move was a Vader bomb out of the corner.
Okay.
I do a running Vader bomb, kind of like Jack Swagger would do.
Yeah.
So I realized when I was running in, I had set Christian up a little too far out. And I'd gotten to the corner and I jumped up for the Vader bomb and I screamed, I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
And then I was like, damn it, I gotta pivot. And I climbed the top rope and I'd never done this before. And I just did a moonsault. And then I
Wow.
hit it. And then what the problem is, I was favoring the foot that I had, the ankle that I had hurt, and I landed on the top of my other foot. And I didn't know this at the time. I just know I thought I just tweaked it and hurt it. And I tried to play it off as I was just selling afterwards. I was like, fuck, because it really hurt.
Yeah.
And they were like, are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm just selling. I'm fine. And a couple years later, this is a couple of years ago, well after I stopped wrestling, I tweaked something on my foot and I went and got an x-ray and I have a hairline fracture on the top of that foot. And I knew immediately when I saw the fracture it was from that.
Wow.
But yeah, anyway, my point is that when I came back, I was just getting to the point where I was trying to do all these classes, and after the class, my body would just swell up, my ankles would swell up, and it was just I'd be icing it, and it got to the point where I was getting a promotion at work that required me to take weekends, and I couldn't do wrestling, so it kind of all added up that I think I needed to slow down the wrestling.
So what's like your final match considered, I guess?
It was probably, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, was it chaotic probably?
Probably chaotic.
I'll put it down here. I'll do some digging.
All right, we'll find out.
So I'm curious for you when you look at your career, will that be the last ever match you have?
They say never.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that if I could put the time in and actually work on my body again, that's my biggest downfall.
Yeah.
And, if I had put in some time to go into the gym, I would have probably had way more opportunities than I did. But if I decide to step the game up and lose some weight and maybe get some of the weight off the ankles, never say never.
No.
I actually told Julian a couple of shows ago. I mentioned this to him a while back. This was probably when he first stepped away in 2012. I actually left a Facebook post. I said, Julian, come back, man. We miss you. We can be a tag team because he had gained some weight. So we can be belly to belly. And I think that would be the greatest tag team. Me and Julian Starr's belly to belly, but I can't convince him to do it. If I can, I think that I'll come back to that.
Wow, I got to tell Julian, but I'm curious for you when you talk about it. You were originally not that social, but I'm curious whose idea is commentary for you because you kill it all the time.
Thanks, man. So I was doing the Chaotic Cast after the crap thing ended. The Chaotic Cast was like a YouTube show we would do bi-weekly or monthly, basically recapping our last shows and then building up to the next ones. It would kind of have little tiny promo segments with me a minute in between introducing the next one. That's basically what it was. And then our color commentator at the time, Simon Gregory, left and there was an opening. So it was kind of natural for me to just fill in at the time, and it went over well. So it just stuck from there, really.
Nice. So when we talk about it, obviously you said originally you weren't that social, but commentary, was this always something that you gravitated towards?
As far as, as I stuck around wrestling, I became more confident in myself, especially with the people around me. And I would, in classes, I would literally at the CTC at that, doing Pro Wrestling Academy, while they were doing class matches, I would just commentate.
Wow.
It's just because I was a goofball. And so, yeah, I think I just always had that, passion for it. I don't know.
Yeah. When you started, did they pair you? Who was it? You and Palladino?
Yep, it was me and Rich Palladino at the time. Yep.
Nice.
But actually, I did have my first commentating experience when I was with Crack. It was just like one of those guest commentary spots with Bobby Cruz.
Love that.
Yeah.
I'm curious when you look at your career, doing commentary for Chaotic Wrestling, but how does the opportunity come to call something with Cody Rhodes?
So that's just
insane.
They brought Cody Rhodes in. I don't know if it was before or after they had that show at Lasher Park in Lowell. Under the Stars, I think it was called something like that. Anyway, he had come in to do a build up to another show, and it was that night I found out that I was just going to do commentary for the main. I was commentating the whole show, but he'd be joining in the main event with me and Palladino for the heavyweight title. It was awesome, man.
Yeah, I'm
He's a nice
curious. So,
guy.
I don't want to put you on blast, but is there one match that stands out that you've gotten to call so far?
You know, I it's so hard to remember, but I
Yeah.
think one that just sticks out for me is when I was my early days of commentating, Chaotic Wrestling. Adam Booker, I think, was wrestling Flip Gordon for the New England title in a ladder match, and my character at the time was just this huge Adam Booker fan. Like
Okay.
that's kind of what I do when I'm on commentary, especially color commentary. I try to find my favorites and cheerlead them on.
Yeah.
I look to like Jerry Lawler as inspiration. For kind of that attitude. But yeah, Adam Booker was one of them, and I just thought for months on, months end, I just be a cheerleader, and then I would do promos on the side. So when that match came up, it was such a good match. It was so easy to get invested into it. As Pat Mathews, the big fan of Adam Booker.
Yeah. Do you have any Rich Palladino stories or calling a match with him or anything?
I don't have any stories specifically.
Yeah.
Rich, I'll just say this is probably the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys you just can't say a bad thing about.
Mhm.
I respect Rich so much, and I'm sure everyone else has the same feeling. Rich, when I first started wrestling as a student, gave me an opportunity to wrestle down for Joseph Bruin down in Rhode Island for like this. I think it was a benefit show in front of Whole Foods. But just little things like that. Rich is always looking out for me, and I always appreciate that. Rich is such a
Nice.
great guy.
I'm curious, when you look at your career all of a sudden, who are your biggest mentors? Because you've done a lot in the ring or out of the ring for commentary. Is there anyone that stands out?
As far as commentary,
Wrestling and commentating.
okay. So I mean, wrestling, Brian Fury. I mean,
Nice.
I said it earlier. He saw something in me that no one wanted to give me the time of day to even just look at me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he'd be the one that when people reached out to the school and say, "Hey, is there any student that you would recommend for a show?" He put me in front of people like Shurman and people that were, they definitely deserve the spot. They look like wrestlers. He went out of his way and gave me the chance. And if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have stuck around so long. So
Wow.
that's the one I'm gonna say.
Nice. I'm curious for your perspective. What was it like to be a part of this past Cold Fury? Obviously, absolute packed house. To see Chaotic from basically the start till now, for you to be a part of it still, what does that mean?
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Again, it's changed so much, especially the production value. I
Yeah.
mean, just the lighting, the video boards, and the entrance stage. Again, I'm big into the backstage and the whole aura of it, not so much the in-ring performances, which I am now I'm good at. Like
Yeah.
I get that now. But it's so crazy to see how far chaotic wrestling has come, and it was so special, Cole Fury to do it with Julian and Scotty
Yeah.
because as much as I do love doing commentary with Rich and RJ, to be able to do it with people you consider, your peers that you came up with, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I'm curious, do you think we talk about if there'll ever be another match, but in commentary, I'm curious when you look at everything you've done so far, do you have any goals in pro wrestling?
As far as goals right now, no.
Okay.
That's a bad answer. I should have some goals. I am working on possibly doing a revival of the Chaotic Cast for Chaotic Wrestling
Nice.
as a podcast, maybe a little like monthly 10-minute, 20-minute podcast. We'll
Yeah.
see. By the time this comes out, maybe there'll already be the first episode
Maybe.
out. We'll know. We'll see. But I'm just playing it by ear right now, and I'm having a good time with the great people that are involved with Chaotic. And if anybody wants to give me a shot at other companies, feel free to hit me up. I would
Nice.
love to take the opportunity to reach out more. I'm not a bad guy, guys.
Yeah. When I commentated with you, it was an absolute pleasure. I learned so much. I told you that next day, but I'm curious for you, Pat. I want to thank you for joining me and doing this. However, I've ended every interview the same now. The day you decide it's all done in wrestling, which obviously isn't anytime soon, but the day you decide it's all done, what do you want Pat Mathews' legacy in pro wrestling to be?
Just someone that took what was given to him and made something out of it, no matter what it was.
Nice.
That's what I want it to be, and I think that could be a lesson for anybody, really. I mean, I may have not have done a lot, but I've taken as little as I've been given, and I like to think I made something out of it.
Yeah. Pat, thank you so much for doing this, and thank you for everything, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. This has been fun. Again, I didn't think I deserved to be on this, but it's been a pleasure. And you keep killing it, man. I said it before, I told you in the DMs, but you're like the most prep man in wrestling. When you were doing that show with Chaotic, I thought you were coming out. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to carry this kid. He doesn't know Chaotic. You knew more than I did. I was so impressed, man. So keep killing it and doing your thing.
Thank you, Pat, for doing this, and thank everybody for watching this episode. This was Best for Business.
Thank you for watching this episode of Best for Business. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, because this is Best for Business.